The next one we have is a pretty interesting story. Now, as you know, Elon Musk is a very colorful fellow with a lot of wild ideas.
Off-color opinions.
Apparently he's a great CEO and the entrepreneur of our time and the great brains. And what else have you heard about Elon Musk? What are some of his...
really weird dick that he has to like crank up with some kind of machine. Sexual abuser, like impregnates women for the hell of it as companies. Offers them $250,000 to like not tell anybody that he showed them their dick on a plane. That's what I've heard about Elon Musk.
Sexually advancing on women, saying, "I'll buy you a horse if you let me impregnate you."
There you go. That's what it was. A horse.
Just normal stuff.
Just
normal stuff.
Dudes rock.
Yeah. And yet I'm the bad guy, right? Everybody's emailing me with their hate mail. And they're
I mean, two things can be true, Chris.
That's true. I've got a long way to go before I'm Elon Musk. And sometimes I do feel like giving up on you leftists out there because you're such sacks of shit that I think I'll just join the right wing and I'll just pander to them and make more money because they got way more money than you guys.
I'm just saying, it might not be a bad idea to start up like alternative channels where we like say right-wing shit and just take their money, as long as we then donate it to leftist causes, as long as we like materially actually advance the leftist cause, as long as we're not just like taking that money for ourselves. Like,
we could do a Colbert Report style thing. We should get some trucker hats and some Make America Great Again hats and come in and say, "Boo, boy,
dude, I mean, honestly,
welcome
like
back."
You and I look and sound more like Chads than most of the right-wing thought leaders. Like, they're not really holding up the game there. I'm just saying.
I would go into leftist places like trans queer squats in Oakland and stuff, and they just hated me right away because I was friendly, just like above board, just like totally open
you look,
book.
especially if you wear that button-down shirt, they're going to assume you're a Fed. Like,
oh, I never did. This is like
okay,
just for the TV or whatever. But no, dude, go on my Facebook. Look how fucked up I used to be. I would wear a pink furry coat and like turquoise pants and a fedora and walk around the streets filthy with lice and play accordion for money on the streets of San Francisco. And would sleep on the street. Yeah. So, but no, I'm a while away from Elon Musk. So Elon Musk openly advocates for overthrowing the government of Bolivia, the country with the largest lithium reserves in the world. So that's the headline. The thing was, this was a comment that he made several years back. It was a tweet that somebody had said, it wasn't in the best interest of the people, the U.S. government organizing a coup against Evo Morales in Bolivia so you could obtain the lithium there. And Elon Musk responded saying, "We will coup whoever we want. Deal with it."
What a dick.
So this was in 2020, I think, or something like this. But still, this is still important today because Bolivia just had a coup last week. People tried to storm the building to give, the military came and wanted to throw the president out. The president told the people, he said, "Hey man, guys, you got to back me up. The military is trying to overthrow me here." The people came, chased away the military. They arrested the military guy and they thwarted the coup. Now Bolivia has had a lot of coups, so let's get into this article and let's read about it. In a display of unbridled capitalist hubris, our modern-day robber baron Elon Musk has once again proven that the pursuit of profit knows no bounds, not even the sovereignty of nations. With the subtlety and with the subtlety of a sledgehammer and the moral compass of a particularly rapacious conquistador, Musk declared to the world, "We will coup whoever we want. Deal with it." One can almost hear the ghost of William Walker applauding from his unmarked Honduran grave. The object of Musk's imperial desire, Bolivia's vast lithium reserves, a crucial component for the batteries that power his electric car empire. It seems our intrepid entrepreneur has decided that democracy is an inconvenient obstacle when there are resources to be plundered and fortunes to be made. How tiresome it must be for the world's wealthiest man to have to contend with the petty concerns of a sovereign nation and their elected leaders. How inconvenient. Evo Morales, Bolivia's first indigenous president, had the temerity to suggest that perhaps Bolivia's resources should benefit Bolivians. Such quaint notions of national self-interest are clearly an anathema to the likes of Musk, who views the world as his personal lithium buffet. When Morales was ousted, In what many observers called a coup, Musk's response was not of one of concern of democratic principles, but rather a gleeful anticipation of easier access to Bolivia's mineral wealth. Yeah.
Do you remember, Chris, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, there was a headline saying that they just discovered some kind of vast, untapped lithium resource in Pennsylvania. It was like something in the U.S. They were like, this is actually going to serve all of our lithium needs for the next several years or whatever. And I don't want to like postulate a crazy conspiracy theory, but it seems to me that maybe somebody was planning on coupping Bolivia and then put out that headline in advance, just assuming that the coup would go through and they'd have access to all those resources, and then the U.S. could say, look, we just found all this lithium in Pennsylvania. But now, we don't even need to Google that article, look at the headlines or anything. I think the real telltale story would be, for any of our, if there's any like right-wing economist dorks in the comments who oppose us and they're hate listening or whatever, go look at the Financial Times. Look at like the prices of lithium after that headline was released about the lithium in Pennsylvania, and then look and compare it again to like the prices of lithium after the failed coup in Bolivia, and see if that tells you anything. See if that tells you the story of like what the real controllers of the prices of things were planning on happening, and as opposed to what actually happened.
You know what's funny is I saw that article too, and I thought, there's something going on here. Maybe they just say that to get everybody super excited, or like, because we're in direct competition with China too. Like, China is trying to get lithium reserves around the world, but they also have their own fair amount of lithium. And so it was like in the Cold War, I know that we were lying about some stuff. We were exaggerating about stuff just to sound like we had our shit together, when sometimes we didn't. And the Soviet Union, we also didn't know how powerful they were till it fell. So it's like they only know what we tell them about our country in some ways. I thought maybe that's the thing. But I don't know what the other thing I read is that it comes from the fracking, right? So they have to frack. As they're fracking, they find the lithium. And so essentially they're going to have to do more fracking in order to get this shit out of the ground. But
convenient excuse.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too crazy about. That's why I'm a degrowth guy. No matter what, humanity is going to be a heat engine that needs vast amounts of power, and like wait till everybody in Nigeria needs an air conditioner and like a refrigerator. And we are not going to be able to handle all that. So all the gizmos that we don't really need, or all this cruising around or leaving the lights on at night. And
just a quick caveat. I think you even understand. That's because there's like one Taylor Swift. It's not the other 100 normal people. It's like the one dude who owns like a sailboat company or some shit and consumes way too much because he leaves the like.
Well, they're the biggest. They are the biggest polluters. But us as a net, I'm talking about as a species. There's no way of getting around it. See, here's the thing that you never get from is the perspective from the animal kingdom and from all other life on Earth. I'm here to advocate for the algae and the fucking the microbiology and the fungi and the animals and the caterpillars. I'm here to at least consider their fucking feelings, because they're the only reason we're alive. Without that whole net of biodiversity, we don't exist. And humans are so anthropocentric that it's the least I can do is to stick up for these things. They're not all creatures, but they're all everything, trees, whatever. It's all important. So you got thinking from that point of view.
Algae like lifting you up like the Avatar tree, just like in appreciation. I love it.
I always had this thing in Ecuador. They had this thing where you could take each organism in the rainforest, wherever, could have their day in court. And I always thought like an amoeba coming in with a lawyer he's like it's court TV. He's like, and they can be represented in a court of law, like trees. A forest of trees has the same rights.
Just because they can't speak it.
Bro, now you're singing my song. That's what I'm talking about, is when it comes to humans, there's way too many of us. Just on any level. Even if we stopped tomorrow, that our entire population size right now is predicated on the popsicle stick foundation of a bunch of industrialized processes. The food, mostly. That's a big part of it. Food and vaccines and whatever else, seat belts. There's all these things that have circumvented evolution and made it so we've ballooned up way past a point where natural selection should have taken us out. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna take up the anti-ant cause, because I half read a fact somewhere that like not only do ants outnumber us by number but also by sheer weight on the planet.
Yep.
So like I'm going to assume that ants are over consuming, and I'm going to say now we got to start exterminating ants because they're eating too much. Like I don't mean it, but that's like a typical right wing cause. Like take a half fact and then go off of that.
But they're not frivolous though. That they eat they eat within their bounds, and they don't change their environment quite as much as we do.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. Which when they do, I'll be the first to be out there lighting the ant colony on fire or whatever. But here's another thing my wife just told me today is that ants, when one of their buddies gets a busted leg, one of the other ants will come up and amputate it for him by clipping it off so that he can get back to work. That's you like communism, look at fungi and like ants, because they know how to do it.
No, I mean that literally like insect colonies are literally collectives in the most literal sense.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Reading on Elon Musk. The irony, of course, Elon Musk portrays himself as a visionary, leading the humanity to a sustainable future. Yet here it is, salivating over the prospect of exploiting a developing nation's resources with the restraint of a 19th century coal baron. One wonders if the batteries in Tesla's cars run on lithium or hypocrisy. In a moment of perhaps unintended honesty, Musk laid bare the ugly truth that so often lurks behind the shiny veneer of progress and innovation. It's the same old story. Powerful interests willing to subvert democracy and sovereignty in the name of profit. Musk may have deleted his tweet, but he cannot delete the stark reality that it revealed. That in the eyes of the powerful, some countries are seen not as nations to be respected, but as resources to be extracted. Now, Bolivia has officially the largest lithium reserves in the world, according to the country's president. The latest estimate puts Bolivia's total lithium resources at about 23 million tons. This is an increase of 2 million tons from the previous estimates. Bolivia holds about 1/4 of the entire global lithium resource, with estimates of 21 million tons, slightly lower than the most recent 23 million ton estimate. Okay. The Salar de Uyuni salt flat in the Bolivian, the world's single biggest lithium deposit, it's visible from space. For comparison, Argentina has the world's second largest lithium reserves at 17 million tons, followed by Chile. So let us not delude ourselves. When Musk speaks of revolutionizing transportation or colonizing Mars, let us remember his willingness to coup whoever we want. For that callous statement lies the true face of a man who would fancy himself a titan of industry, but who is, in the final analysis, nothing more than a well-dressed plunderer with a public relations team. Mm-hmm. Western attempts to assassinate Evo Morales. So this struck me as interesting about a year ago when I read into Evo Morales and what happened to him. Bolivia's struggle for true independence from Western influence has been long and arduous journey, with former President Evo Morales standing as a symbol of resistance against neo-colonial forces. Now, the recent attempts to tarnish Morales' reputation through fabricated sexual misconduct allegations are the latest chapter in a long history of Western manipulation for regime change efforts in the country. So, and that's what I say when anybody says sexual allegations, if they're somebody who's speaking on behalf of political causes that I believe in, I have no choice but to take them with a grain of salt, i.e. COINTELPRO and Evo Morales. So this case is about Noemi Menzies, who was initially presenting as this damning indictment of Morales. It was unraveled to reveal the disturbing pattern of coercion and political maneuvering, however. Menzies, after escaping house arrest, courageously came forward with the truth. She had been forced by police to falsely testify against Morales under threats of prosecution for sedition and terrorism. Her statement to the Bolivian ombudsman exposed the lengths to which anti-Morales forces were willing to go to discredit him. Okay? The incident is eerily reminiscent of past CIA interventions in Bolivia and throughout Latin America. The agency's history for orchestrating coups and spreading disinformation and manipulating public opinion to topple leftist governments is well documented, from the 1964 coup against Victor País Esternosoro to the more recent ouster of Morales in 2019. Bolivia has been a frequent target of such operations. So what happened was, this woman was kidnapped by the police and told to say that she was raped by the president of Bolivia, Evo Morales. She did it. She She took a statement. Then they locked her on house arrest to her house. She escapes, travels to Argentina, and then comes forward and says, I was forced. I was coerced saying this.
Wow.
Yeah. So, as Bolivia continues to navigate its path towards true independence, it faces significant challenges, economic pressures, political divisions, and the ever-present specter of foreign influence and interference. However, the resilience shown by the Bolivian people in defending their democracy we saw this week is truth, and that there's truth behind these fabricated scandals offers hope for a free future from Western manipulation. Well, yeah. I mean, people really should understand and put yourself in the shoes of these countries who have been couped over and over and over and over, and never just take CNN at face value when they say, oh, the dictator down there, Nicolas Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela, is being bad again, doing stuff. There's more to the story, okay? Yeah, maybe he did some bad things, but you maybe take a closer look at the supposed human rights violations. Who's saying them? You know, maybe just look closer. I know that sounds crazy. Oh, he's crazy. He's like right-wing. He's like... people right now, they're like, that Chris Jeffries, he's like micro-Hitler. I hate him. He's just...
I mean, not to make any kind of like blanket excuse... Sorry, go ahead.
Somebody called me micro-Hitler the other day, too. Go ahead.
That's such a weird one. That's like I mean, especially for you, like... But, like, not to make any kind of blanket excuses for, like, anyone who's accused of sexual assault or anything like that, but... Just like looking at the history of like leftist leaders as opposed to like even neoliberal ones. It's like you got Bill Clinton and like the Monica Lewinsky thing. You have like Donald Trump, and you have like Biden and his accusations of sexual abuse that were like credible up until he was the Democratic Party nominee in 2020, and then you couldn't believe Tara Reid anymore. It's like then you see like leftist leaders. It's like I always like to reference Fidel Castro and him literally seducing a woman who was sent to assassinate him by the CIA. It's like I just love to imagine somebody like Fidel, who's just so charismatic and such a genuine guy because he's literally trying to lead his people to liberation, that when someone who's sent to him to kill him because they're led to believe that he's a dictator and a tyrant and everything and like hates his people, then sees what he's actually about and sees he's like a genuine guy and again a charismatic leader. It's like the fact that even happened is so great. And then Gaddafi, like we were talking about earlier, like Gaddafi, one of the famous stories about Gaddafi is that he had, I think it was like, I don't know if it was 50 or 500 models sent to him in Italy, and everybody thought he was just going to like have some kind of orgy or crazy like debaucherous party, and he read the Quran to them. He like sent them home with a copy of the Quran and read a bunch of it to them because he wanted them to live like more wholesome lifestyles than what they were doing, like objectifying themselves. And it's like, that's like what socialist leaders are about, as opposed to like the Western, you know, conniving, predatory ones. Like,
yeah, that's a big deal. You know, Gaddafi famously took a bunch of money, oil money, and got in touch with the Black Liberation Movement, or who's the guy of the Black supremacy movement in the United States? Not Sharpton, the other, Farrakhan. Did a like a show with them, like he was on a conference call live at the Nation of Islam, and he said, I'm going to send you guys 600,000 guns so that your fight against white America or something. So he actually was linked up with black liberationists and wanted to arm black people in America, and I just thought that was so cool.
I mean, Gaddafi did arm the IRA. He sent them a lot of like all those M16s you always see the IRA having, they came from Gaddafi. Like,
yeah, look closer at these dictators. Maybe just don't write them off, because the Gaddafi one, the most shocking by far.
Just wait, 5 years from now we'll be rehabilitating Saddam.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to be said for him too, where he was in his younger days too, he was a socialist. Maybe sooner. In fact, we'll do an episode. We'll do an episode. Yeah. So notable coups in the region down there in South America: Guatemala 1954, Brazil 1964, Chile 1973, Argentina 1976, and Bolivia 1971. Nothing to shake a stick at. We've been down there more than we can say we've been other places. I don't know. It's pretty damning, I'd gotta say. and call me old-fashioned, but I think maybe we shouldn't just be going and ruining people's countries or subverting their elections or even lying if we have any principles in saying that we're spreading democracy when in fact we're actually subverting democracy. I don't like contradictions. I don't like things
Crazy
that don't make
thought.
fucking sense. You know, it's like, oh no, I would never murder somebody as you're murdering somebody with a knife. Like, come on, didn't you just say you're not doing that? But that's what 1984. It's like doublespeak.
That's so funny, Chris. You just said that like you're not even in the group chat that I said that in yesterday. Like one of my friends is getting kicked out of his house. Not getting kicked out of his house, but his stepfather said like, "Stop saying that Israel is committing a genocide in my house, or else you're going to not live here." And I'm like, well, that really sucks. Like to be in a position where like a person you depend on for housing, like who runs your house, is like saying you need to deny reality. And like I was just like, as a joke, I'm like, oh, you should kill him. and everybody like got the joke. They're like, they just laughed. I'm like, you should like, as like the stabbing motions are saying, like, I'm not committing a murder. Don't say that I'm committing a murder. Like, but it's just funny that you said that, and it's like I said that. Yeah, you're not even in that group chat, like word for word.
You're gonna give that guy ideas too. He's gonna be like, was that a joke?
It's like that Mike's got some points.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's that thing. The communists always pass around this fake news story that's woman jumps up and says, "Long live Chairman Mao," and cuts her landlord's head off with a samurai sword.
I do love that one. I know it's not real, but I love it anyway.
I should make more stuff like that to pass around. But you know, look, dude, what right-wing people are doing on chat shows, I think I can do whatever the fuck I want. I can write whatever articles I want. I can get on here and say whatever the fuck I want, because
right-wingers literally believe that there's litter boxes in schools. Like, we should not be holding ourselves to some kind of standard of truth that right-wingers are not doing. Like, why are we playing by the rules of the cheaters game anymore? Like,
somebody called me out on some stuff where I got some facts wrong. Okay, one time in an article because I got some bad research or whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But the overall theme of the article was correct, that like people are that the real estate game is rigged. Okay, and this person wants to say, but bad. I was like, as long as Reuters, I just saw an article Reuters put out that said chewing gum. Study says chewing gum makes you smarter. And I scroll to the bottom of the thing. It's like, who funded the study? Oh, Wrigley's. Wrigley's funded the study. They find that teenagers are smarter when they chew gum. It's like, fuck you.
Go fuck yourself.
Okay. Go fuck yourself. And this is what's passing for journalism. And so I'm supposed to be upset that I don't get something right, or I come across racist. This young lady who just wanted to hornswoggle me out of, I don't get that.
I've been asked by people in my personal life when they find out I have a communist podcast, they're like, well, do you look up your information with fact checkers? And I was just like, yeah, sure, bro. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
bro,
a fact checker. Well, I need an org from the U.S. government to tell me that my facts about communism are wrong. It's like, go fuck yourself. Like,
yeah. Has this been totally tested and like approved by the Western governments?
By victims of communism.
Western media. Yeah, I heard. The Western media told me that what they do in the other countries are bad.
I guess we better keep supporting capitalism by proxy.
Yeah, you're right. We better not question anything, right? In fact, I'm never going to leave my little small town, and I'm going to put a blanket over my head and sit in the closet with my fucking thumbs in my ears and go la 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 la. I mean,
hyperbole aside, but that is what drives me nuts about the American quote unquote left. Is there are so many people who will not even quote unquote support China, Russia, Iran, any actually like materially anti-imperialist country that is fighting the U.S. empire more than they are currently doing from within that empire. They won't even support it by saying positive things online, posting a meme, like possibly praising just their anti-imperialist efforts, not their cultural politics, not their oppression of like minorities or women at home or whatever they think is happening, again, based on American propaganda. But they will continue literally supporting America by going to work, paying taxes, not like saying just negative things about America all the time. It's like their lopsided version of what they consider support puts them in a position where they are literally doing fascism on a daily basis and considering themselves anti-fascist by identification only.
It's socially fascist. That people in a panic, no matter if they're left or right, choose authoritarianism, and they say it's my way or the highway. And if you don't agree with me, I'll kill you because you're not my friend. And they're both doing it. They just have different tones, right? They just do it in a different way, and because they're panicked, they don't know what to fucking do. Things are not black and white. Things aren't so easy. There are people that do terrible stuff who are excellent artists or whatever. Like, you have to deal with it. John Lennon beat his wife. When John Lennon sat in bed and was protesting for peace in the bed or whatever, he stayed in bed. He was like,
that was pretty
But he got up to let the maid change the bed once a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely against. That's the cringiest part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm down for the protest that he was in bed, he was trying to get peace. That's cool. It's symbolic. Whatever. He's a rich guy, but he actually got up and let the maid make the bed. Yeah. That puts a huge stake in the whole thing. Woody Allen, great movies. Horrible, weird dude.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a bad one.
Charles Manson killed people, was a
great politics.
Lifelong criminal. Dude, greatest music. One of my favorite musicians, hands down.
I've actually never listened to his music. That's crazy.
Oh, it's awesome, dude. Charles Manson's music is so good. You'll love it. You gotta check it out. Everybody out there, go check it out. Life's not black and white, leftists. It's not going to be so easy. You know, you have to accept some wiggle room. Like, I was homeless, and so I hitchhiked around, and I would get picked up by straight up racist people. And they treated me kind, and they bought me sandwiches. And so I always knew that behind all the vitriol and all the racist stuff is a person that's just missing a few key life experiences to open their eyes.
They're also looking for community. They're just looking for it in the wrong way. They're looking for it by skin color as opposed to class. So,
class and or proximity. Like, I would be friends with anybody in my proximity. If you live on my block, okay, we're all in this together. We all have similar interests. We want to keep the riffraff and stuff to a minimum on our block. That's all you need to do, right? That's all you need to look out for the people who are important to rely on. And then other than that, it would be nice if you had an open-minded fucking diplomatic approach to people from other places. Well, they came from somewhere else, but let's not get out the torches and pitchforks just yet. Let's see what they want. Let's see if they're all right. And if they start raping the white women and setting fire to all the buildings, then maybe we should do something about it. But until it's really, really out of control. But that opens up another fucking discussion about whether or not black people, because these white people, they see videos of them running out of the sunglass hut with 20 of them, or running out with 20 iPhones, all these guys, all these black kids or whatever, and they panic. They go, oh, it's the usual suspects. Oh, look, it's a DEI initiative. So they're calling, to replace the N-word, now they're calling them scholars.
That's a DEI.
Oh, here's a bunch of scholars.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that one.
I've heard that's the new one. They call them, here's another group of scholars attacking a white woman.
It's so insidious, man. Like, the fact that, like, white people feel the need to sit online and not only post videos, but then comment on videos of, like, black people stealing, when they should be out there stealing from the rich people, since they claim to hate elites, coastal elites. Like, they claim to hate the people who are, like, the cabal running everything and, like, making life miserable for them, but they would rather hate on people of color who are doing the direct action that they should be doing. And it's like, black people aren't doing that. There are no black people sitting around posting cringy videos of white people. It's like, there are those, but those are also posted by white people. It's like, it's funny enough, like, there are white people posting videos of white trash people to make fun of themselves. It's like, there are no black people who are bothered making fun of white people. Like, they don't care. Like, they're just living their lives. Like, yeah. It's sad, man.
That's what I'm telling you, man. It's a human thing. That's the only way for me to actually put, because I'm a human too. I need to put everything in one box. At some point, I have to say black and white on something, and my black and white is, well, people really just are inherently sort of like this or whatever. But I'm waiting to be surprised, of course. Like, I love to be surprised by, there's a, like, the guy last time, he's like, but there's an indigenous tribe that lives way up on the hill, and they never fight, and they're actually awesome, and they live within their means and stuff. It's okay, but for the most part, I'm not seeing a lot of great stuff.
you're just kind of, it's the limited sample. Like, I'm sure you encountered a lot more genuine, wholesome people when you were homeless, when you met people who were in that same kind of position. And now you're in this position where you're seeing a lot of like people who have homes, who have like stuff, who are content with society as it exists. And so like you're living in the palace. It's like, if you look like related to a Disney movie, it's like when you talk about like, I don't know, fucking Aladdin. It's like Aladdin lives on the street and he meets a bunch of like street people who are cool and they're chill. And then he goes in the palace and they're all a bunch of conniving backstabbers who are like concerned with material shit and all this performative like bullshit. It's like,
I'm not in the palace quite yet, man. I'm
just saying relatively. Like,
no, because I always harbored these feelings from the get-go because I grew up in a very cynical household and I was subjected to a fair amount of trauma from like a fairly wide array of different people from all over the world. Like, some people are good. Individuals are quite good. Individuals are have the ability to be human, and you can almost have a conversation with almost anyone anywhere in the world. And that's true. And people will help you regardless of your skin color or what's wrong with you or your political beliefs, anything like that. Most people, if they see that you've chopped your foot off and you're dying on the street, most people, somebody's going to stop and say, you need help, whatever. But that has its limitations also. Like homeless people in the city, we've just learned to step over them. And that's normal. That reminds me of this Louis C.K. bit where he goes, this woman came from the Middle East or the Midwest or what. She wasn't used to how it is in New York. And she saw a homeless person and she bent down to say, hey, what happened? What's going on? And his instinct was to actually grab her and correct her and say, no, we don't do that here. And say like, and that's true. They did this sociological study or video way back in the day, about 15 years ago on the internet. It was like a guy in a suit starts coughing and then falls down on the street. People come and help him. You dress the same guy up in like ratty clothes and he starts coughing and falls down in the street. He lays there for hours. Yeah. So I think I've taken a sample size that's it's good enough for me. And also George Carlin is like somebody who I emulate with a lot because he is a disappointed idealist who saw great gifts that the humans had that we squandered, and we don't really know why. Capitalism is one part of it, how we sort of we took this system and applied it to everything and made competition the end-all be-all for our metric of how good our life is. But in reality, we've been raping and killing and cutting each other's heads off and cannibalizing and torturing and ripping out people's fingernails and burning their eyeballs with hot coat hangers for like 10,000, 100,000 years. I forget how long humans have been here, like 100,000 years, something like that. Scientists, please write me your hate mail.
240,000.
Look forward to your letters.
Out there.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, I really believe that humanity had great gifts, but we've squandered them through modernity and through all the progress that we think we have. When I read this book, The Brief History of Humankind by this one guy, it's a popular book. And he talked about how we used to live longer. We used to live up until the 70s. We had the same life expectancy when we were nomadic cave kind of people than we did at the beginning of the agricultural revolution. We started dying way earlier. Our life expectancy went down to like 30, living that Roman lifespan because we shat where we ate. We had no concept. And when we were nomadic, we kept going. There was no disease. There was nothing. There was no problem. We weren't overpopulated. There wasn't, and our populations were manageable. Evolution was still taking place. You still had natural selection doing its thing, baby. It was doing its thing. It was taking us out. And when you got too old, we didn't hook you up to machines or anything. We just got rid of you, straight up. And in some indigenous groups, there was women were in charge too, which made an entirely different dynamic too. This might have been the glory days of humanity, the real times when we were free from systematic oppression, big, huge industrial machinery kind of oppression that keeps us down today. And we traded it all for some semblance of feeling good about having a clean floor. Like, I lived in places that had dirt on the floor and hay on the floor. I was just as happy with these places. But we overly sanitized everything and boxed out nature and poisoned all the mosquitoes and poisoned the land and just so we could have fake dog vomit and sneakers with lights in them. And, that's a George Carlin. But it's just, I really will stick to my guns when I say I think humanity is... I like communism. I think it's a good system. But I think for me, I think it's hopeless. It's hopeless. We're just pieces of shit. That's it.
My rebuttal to that would be, like, early on I read 2 books by the same author, Daniel Quinn. One is, I don't know if it's Call Me Ishmael or just Ishmael, but it's like... And then the sequel is The Story of B, but people can look them up. But the premise is basically this guy responds to an ad in the paper and ends up being a student of a gorilla, like a sentient gorilla who communicates to him telepathically. And this gorilla tells him, in so many words, all the ills of human culture and why it's destined to failure. Like, he's outlining the contradictions in capitalism, basically. And I don't think Daniel Quinn even knew it. I don't know what his background is. I don't know if he just, like, studied anthropology and the humanities long enough to figure out that, like, overconsumptive capitalism was unsustainable and then wrote a book purely from that perspective. But what he says in the book is, like, there's murder even in nature. There's animals killing each other, and even humans in the natural state would kill animals for food. What you can't do is wage war. Like, that was the distinction he makes. He's like, you can exist in nature, you can even be violent, but you just cannot wage war. And by waging war, he means taking things beyond what you just need for survival. And he was talking about like enclosing property, starting to like do agriculture and farming, things that are like beyond taking what you just need for survival and like enclosing things to the point that other people can't have them, let alone creating the structures of oppression and exploitation that we've created now. And so that's all just to say that like the different approaches that people seem to have are like these anti-technological, like I don't want to say Luddite, but like anarcho-primitivist maybe, where, or even fascist, like they want to like go backwards in time to some kind of like some situation before this. But it is only the communists who can take things as they are and formulate a plan for how to get back to a situation, because all religions, even all political systems and all religions are trying to get us back to this one state of humanity where we exist in harmony and don't feel alienated from the work that we have to do to sustain ourselves, because that work is necessary whether we want to admit it or not. We are not to the point of automation doing everything for us. We still need to do some kind of human labor. We just haven't found a way to dole it out equally, to spread it out among everyone so that we feel unalienated. We don't feel like we're being forced to do more work than we're getting in return, right? So communism is the only way that integrates both states and even capitalist modes of production to the point where we can wither those away intentionally with a principled plan and a directed plan to get there, to the point where we use technology and even states to get to the point where we don't need them anymore, in a way that doesn't spawn some kind of reaction where people rehabilitate or resurrect those things because they can see some kind of advantage in personal to the person. I mean, I agree too, and I just think, of course, as long as I'm not going to just go kill myself or kill a bunch of people. I'm still committed to living my life. There's still things I quite enjoy. I like individual conversations with people. I like music. I like dancing. I like getting it on. I like all kinds of... There's still stuff left for me to do, and there's still redeeming qualities about humanity, of course, and the togetherness that I feel with certain groups, so of course. But I think that it's worth saving. It's worth salvaging. Let's get some systems in place that can maybe change my mind. And I'm never going to be entrenched in my own views. I want somebody to come along and remind me that humanity can do great things that are selfless and beautiful and help people in a way that reverses all the pain and anguish. But my personal experiences have led me to believe that I should take a more cynical approach when having expectations of humanity. That's all. Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. I just also still think that most of the time when people are saying that like all governments are bad, all humans are bad, they're really basing that on Western governments who have only worked to exploit them, or like Western systems of power and corporations or whatever that have only existed to lie to them, to sell them false products and false promises, and then poison and exploit them. And it's like, there is another way. We just have never seen it. And so we can't even envision that example.
Yeah.
We also have like been indoctrinated to hate the ones that do exist because they're scary and Asian or something. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Again, tribalism keeping us from taking methods that the Chinese are doing right now and saying, well, maybe this could work over here. No. They're Chinese. That
You don't want fast trains,
because
sir.
we don't want to eat dogs over here, so we can't have fast trains, right?
Yeah.
They eat dogs, so we can't have the fast trains. Okay.
Makes perfect sense.
That's the level of thinking that we're at. But whatever. I mean, we might have a hope in hell. But I'm saying, like, prove me wrong, folks. Come and show me that the world's a beautiful place. Look, I follow activists. The people doing the hardest work, the most that they go to jail for the things that they believe in. Everybody hates them. These climate protesters that sit in traffic, everybody hates them, even people on the left. I don't. I love them. I love them for being annoying. So there's a vegan activist named Tash Peterson. She's like a porn star / vegan activist, and she lives in like Australia or something. And she's always in the news. Everybody in the town hates her. They had a barbecue with like 500 people showed up and it was called the Anti-Tash Barbecue because all she's done is tormented this entire town. She goes to the grocery store. People are buying milk, and she just walks up to them, and he goes, "You're paying them to rape those cows?" You know, like make it. It's like sitting there with a sign in her lingerie, screaming at people buying milk, and I just love her because that's so cool. People should be uncomfortable for whatever cause. People should sit in traffic. Put what did they do? Spray paint Stonehenge. Good. Fuck you.
It washed right off.
I want
and like that was the point. People were more mad about them putting a thing on Stonehenge that washed off in 30 seconds and would wash off with the next rainfall than they were about the literal murder of Palestinians, like the literal genocide of human beings, and that's what people were more angry about.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if this is a Western thing. I think it's more of a human thing. Wait until China goes through their own moments where they rise and then they sort of fall and then they decide that fascism is the way to go or you know, whatever.
We shall see.
At some point, even like the people in Easter Island that cut down all their own trees, they got super greedy. They had a paradise and they cut it all down because they couldn't control their own, you know, they could never be satiated by normal means. And I just think that's the curse of the brain that we have.
On that. I didn't know about those guys either.
Rapa Nui. They had indigenous people in the island, and then they deforested the whole thing, and then they built those heads. As soon as they chopped down all the trees, they're like, well, what do we do? And then they built a bunch of heads, and then they died.
Oh. Well, there you go. No episode needed.
End of story. Full stop. It's for me, it's the way we consume regardless of the system, and the way we have this brain that's overactive and that it can't be satiated through normal means, that you have people tinkering and trying to find a new device to overcome this perceived contrived problem, like this problem that we thought, like even people dying from a disease. I know this is a controversial opinion. I don't know if that's really something we should have done. Like in some cases, you're circumventing natural selection and you're allowing the population to get to a point where more people will die in the future if you invent this now, because we'll balloon up, and it's just, there's no telling what can happen when you live outside your natural means. Like, for instance, there was this, in the 1800s or something, there was this solar storm or something, or a volcano erupted. Something happened. Anyway, they had like 2 years of darkness. And none of the crops grew. Huge famines. This might have been in the Middle Ages. If anybody knows, let me know. But this happened a few different times in history where you had at least 2 years of really bad crop growing, and people starved. People fucking starved to death. And there's nothing that says that can't happen again. volcanoes erupt, solar storms happen, and if our dependence is on machines, if our dependence is on industrial production, or if our dependence is on natural processes, we're not looking good. And so it's all about moderate levels of, like, and it sounds very eugenicist kind of thing, like we need to keep the population to a reasonable level so that we're not really in a position where something bad would happen like that. If something like that happened tomorrow, I guarantee we would be forced into mass cannibalism, because after we ate the livestock, they would be gone. The crops wouldn't grow. The only food source that would be left was maybe mushrooms, and the rest would be fucking big, juicy steaks in the form of human beings walking around. And we would be forced to eat each other. Guaranteed.
Yeah, I'm really curious.
That's my
like,
own
I'm curious, like, how did people survive in those 2 years where crops didn't grow in the Middle Ages? Because it's not like they had hydroponic farms. Like, that's something we should, like, look into, because that could be very relevant. Like, that could end up being very relevant to our situation sooner than we want to admit. I think a lot about the future of climate change, and I know that everybody is very doom and gloom. Like, the people who are climate scientists keep talking about the unstable environmental conditions creating such a situation where we just cannot grow food, and humanity goes extinct within the next 100 years. Like, people literally say that there's a strong possibility humanity will go extinct before 2100 because we are on the fast track without seemingly any breaks to climate apocalypse. Like, there's no one doing any serious regulation other than China, and they're not going to be able to save the entire world. Now, I don't have that apocalyptic view just based on what I know about history and the fact that we are still here. Like, there have been major apocalyptic events for humanity, and we obviously have survived them to this point. And it makes sense to me to think that if there are major climate crises and they cause mass death, that also means a lot less carbon. That means, like, that is the reduction in human activity causing the climate change that, unfortunately, we don't want to see it happen that way. We would rather have it in a directed way that keeps everybody alive, but the world doesn't care. Like, it just may happen that way. And I feel like that will end up being the solution to climate change, and whatever small amount of humanity does survive, whether they just live off preserved foods for like 5-10 years and they just end up being like disgusting cancer-ridden people because of it, but they end up surviving and breeding the new race of humanity that ends up being fine after that. Like, I have no idea how it's going to look. It's going to be bad, it's going to be imperfect, and it's going to be like less than what we want, but it's because we're not doing the things for the ideal future right now. Like, we're not prefiguring the real future that we want right now. Like, we're not doing it.
We're not even trying, bro. We're not even acknowledging it. In fact, the climate denialism is going rampant. But on an optimistic point, which I will rarely be, is that technological progress is exponential now, thanks to the internet, and the technology that we already have has made it so that the rate of change will be exponential. And so we might solve some stuff before we kill ourselves, but the fact that we don't care, the fact that Elon Musk thinks he's going to save humanity but never mentions at all microplastics as a thing that is bad, or even
he thinks he's going to escape and go to Mars.
Yeah, I don't think that like the idea that technology is going to save us. I hear these optimists do this all the time, and it's like, yeah, that's nice, and I hope you're right, but to bet on that, it's so stupid. It reminds me
it's a long shot.
Really like an apocalyptic movie where they do that, where they're like, well, we tried, or don't look up. They go up and they try to blow it up, and they're like, oh, it didn't work. All right, fuck it. So as far as the scenario I was talking about before, the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia, which led to what was known as the Year Without Summer in 1816. This event caused global cooling and widespread crop failures, leading to food shortages in many parts of the world. People survived off of mostly stored grains and preserved foods. Many people relied on preserved meats, fruits, vegetables from previous harvests. Alternative crops, some people switched to potatoes and other root vegetables, other stuff that could grow in that climate. Also wild plants and animals, people were hunting and foraging like crazy. And then, of course, soup kitchens and charity opened up where people shared food as much as they could. You had bread substitutes where people were just like grinding tree bark and sawdust into flour to stretch the bread, which... You ever had a tree sandwich? It's not that very good. Fish, coastal communities, people could fish still, but then there was, importing, and of course they ate a lot of livestock. But if that was this population was much, 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 much smaller then. Mm-hmm. So I'd just hate to think what would happen in that situation. But I'm not a doomer, but I don't want to be anything. I want this podcast to be something where I don't slap labels on myself and go around, well, he's like a Marxist, Leninist, like communist, vegan, ventriloquist. Bro, I'm not a communist ventriloquist.
There are just too many things that people can eat for us to go extinct. It's like the fact that like people were eating tree bark and then they like lived. It's like, that's what I mean, man. It's like, I just don't buy this thing that we could go extinct. Like, we'll eat the bark beetles. Like, we'll eat something. Like,
we won't look very good, but we'll definitely. I had a slug outbreak on my garden this year, and I thought, at the very least, I could munch down these little guys. Gets down to it, man. Man, I tell you what,
the amount of things that people also make appetizing after, like, once you cook things enough, it's like when you start with like. There's so many fruits and vegetables, even ingredients, like even chicken. Like, I eat chicken all the time. Like, you start with the raw chicken. It's gross. Like, it's like eating a slug, but like you cook it, you season it. I'll eat a slug, man. I'll braise that shit. Right. In a pinch, I will. But no, I'm turned off by meat. I mean, as a vegan now, I was like, it's so bizarre that, well, I mean, look, I always say this about pork too. Pork is the only meat that can kill you. Like, it's when it goes bad, it's the worst thing that you can eat. If you were going to eat a spoiled food, pork is like the last thing you want to eat, followed by like chicken. Okay.
But it needs refrigeration, and I'm always saying, beans don't need any refrigeration. They stay dry forever. They don't really go bad so easily. Beans, people, wave of the future.
What is that poison that beans have? Isn't it like lectin or something that if you don't soak them long enough, they can poison you?
Not oxalates, but let me think. What is the thing? It hurts your iron uptake too. Let me check that out.
I remember it was like easily avoidable.
While I look it up.
When I first like looked into dried beans, because there was like a time when I went on a rabbit hole of like how to get like some cheap calories to like fill in other meals and stuff. Like I think it was like when I found the subreddit Eat Cheap and Healthy, which is also probably going to be relevant and helpful for a lot of people now. But yeah, check out the subreddit Eat Cheap and Healthy, because it is actually very useful. But they had a big, probably like a sticky post warning about dried beans, because it's one of the go-tos. It's like they are super cheap, they're readily available, and they're very easy to prepare. But if you don't soak them long enough, they can leave some kind of like latent poison in there or something that's like not great for you.
Yeah. So basically it's mostly beans that are raw, and you don't eat beans raw, so most of them you leach it out through the cooking process, especially beans when you cook them for hours and hours and hours. So canned beans, they're already gone, and then you're probably going to warm them up anyway, so you're doing fine. Same with oxalates. Everybody always complains about oxalates. These are in raw spinach. Miley Cyrus was famously on the vegan diet, then copped out and said, I can't do it. She was eating spinach smoothies every day, raw. And if you eat spinach raw every day, it has tons of oxalates in it, which blocks the uptake of other vital nutrients that you need. And so, of course, she did it wrong. And so she made the whole vegan movement look terrible by saying, I just couldn't do it. It's just not possible. And but the truth was she was having kidney stones from eating too much oxalates, which could happen to anybody. Beans also have oxalates. They also have polyphenols, but soaking promotes the leaching of polyphenols from beans. Phytochemicals, the hydration process of beans leads to the leaching out of phytochemicals, especially polyphenolic compounds. So again, soak the beans. If they're already in a can, you don't have this issue. If you're cooking them at home, cook them, strain the water, put water back in, then salt them, season them, eat them. Boom. Cheap as fuck, okay? Poor people all over the country eating beans in third world countries, staying fit as fuck on beans because you have fiber. It's not this anaerobic, slop in your colon that just sits there, wedged in there like meat is. It doesn't have saturated fat, which clogs up your arteries and also increases inflammation in the body. Your joints, your bones, your muscles, you're all going to have more inflammation if you're ingesting red meats or even lean meat. Chicken still has saturated fat in it. Again, saturated fat increases your triglycerides when you eat it, increases your bad cholesterol, your LDL. You got your HDL, your LDL. big bean talk here, I know, but
hey man, as big a fan of you are as of beans, I am of rice and beans. I fucking love just rice and beans together. Like, as much as I'm not like a vegan, like that is a great staple. And I think, again, it's going to become a lot more relevant for people as conditions get dire. But if anybody's got a good, authentic recipes for some like nice Spanish rice and beans, please comment them in the on the live stream, because I would love to cook them myself, and I don't have any good recipes at home, so do wait for that.
And if you're poor, look, that's why I think beans are very communist. For all you commies listening, beans are the ticket, man, because they're cheap. And you've heard of the meat and dairy lobby, right? Oh, the meat and dairy industry. Oh, yeah, the big capitalist institute. Did you hear about Big Bean? No, nobody talks about Big Bean because there's not massive subsidies for Big Bean.